The slap that echoed from a small-town diner to the highest office of national security began with the quiet jingle of quarters. "Get out! You don't belong here." Kyle Becker's fist smashed into Sam Washington's face. The 72-year-old veteran staggered back. Coffee hit the floor. Quarters scattered. "Know your place, old man," Kyle spat, towering over him. Sam touched his burning cheek. His American flag pin glinted under the lights. The diner went dead silent. Every phone came out. Recording started. This looked simple. A racist bully attacking a helpless elderly black man. Sam seemed defenseless. Worn cardigan. Counting change. An easy target. Wrong. Hidden under that cardigan was a Purple Heart. In his phone was a contact. James, director of Homeland Security. Chloe, the waitress, knew the truth. "That idiot has no clue," she whispered. Sam pulled out his phone. His hands didn't shake. Military training runs deep. Kyle Becker had just slapped the father of one of America's most powerful men. Federal backup was one phone call away. Hit subscribe. This bully is about to learn what real power looks like. 30 minutes earlier, Murphy's Diner buzzed with typical Tuesday morning energy. Steam rose from fresh coffee pots. Local farmers filled corner booths, discussing crop prices and weather forecasts. The smell of bacon and hash browns filled the air in Millbrook, population 3,847, where everyone supposedly knew everyone. Sam Washington pushed through the glass door at exactly 7:30 a.m., just like every Tuesday for the past 3 years. His routine never varied. Black coffee, wheat toast, exact change counted from a worn leather wallet. The elderly black man moved with quiet dignity, his navy cardigan showing its age but pressed neat and clean. Chloe Davis looked up from behind the counter and smiled. The young waitress had memorized his order long ago. "Morning, Mr. Washington." "The usual, please, Chloe." "Thank you." She poured his coffee without asking how he liked it. Black, no sugar, no cream. A simple man with simple needs, or so it appeared to anyone watching. What most people missed were the small details. The way Sam sat with his back to the wall, scanning exits. The precise way he folded his napkin. The American flag pin on his collar that never seemed to tarnish, and the American Legion pin beside it, both positioned with military precision. His phone buzzed. A text message. "Dad, big meeting with the cabinet today. Love you, James." Sam smiled and typed back slowly with one finger. "Proud of you, son. Be safe." Across the diner, Kyle Becker sat in his usual corner booth, scrolling through social media on his phone. His construction crew uniform was clean this early in the morning, but his attitude was already dirty. He'd been coming to Murphy's for 2 years, ever since the new housing development brought different types to Millbrook. Kyle's eyes tracked Sam's movements with obvious disdain. The old man's careful counting of quarters, his polite nods to other customers, the way he quietly minded his own business, everything about Sam Washington seemed to irritate Kyle Becker on a cellular level. "Don't know why they let just anyone in here these days," Kyle muttered to his breakfast companion, loud enough for surrounding tables to hear. The businessman at the next table shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Gable, the mayor's wife, glanced up from her newspaper with a frown, but nobody said anything. They never did. Chloe's jaw tightened as she refilled coffee cups. She'd watched this pattern develop over months, Kyle's comments getting bolder, his aggression increasing, his jokes becoming less funny and more pointed. She'd thought about saying something to her manager, but Kyle was a regular customer who tipped well. Money talked louder than dignity in small-town diners. Outside the window, college student Leo Jenkins was setting up his camera equipment. His assignment was simple: document real small-town America for his journalism class. He'd chosen Murphy's Diner because it looked authentic, timeless, the kind of place where honest people shared honest conversations. Leo adjusted his lens and checked his audio levels. His professor had emphasized capturing genuine moments, unguarded interactions that revealed character. He had no idea he was about to document something that would reach the highest levels of American government. The security camera above Sam's table blinked its red recording light. The diner's owner had installed the system 6 months ago after a rash of petty thefts. What he hadn't anticipated was how valuable that footage might become. Sam's phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert about federal funding for rural law enforcement programs. He read it carefully, then deleted it without comment. Some habits from his son's world had rubbed off on him over the years. Kyle Becker was getting restless. His breakfast companion had left for work, and he found himself with time to kill before his construction shift started. Time to kill and an elderly black man who represented everything he thought was wrong with his changing town. The morning crowd began to thin. Farmers headed to their fields. Office workers drove to their jobs in the county seat. The traveling businessman settled his check and left. Soon it would be just the regulars, the lingerers, and one old man who didn't know his peaceful Tuesday morning was about to become a nightmare. Chloe glanced at her phone. A text from her cousin Leo outside. Getting great footage of authentic small-town life. This place is perfect. She looked out the window and waved. Leo waved back, still filming. Neither of them realized they were about to become key witnesses to an assault that would go viral within hours. At 7:47 a.m., Leo Jenkins positioned his camera for the perfect shot of small-town America. He had no idea he was about to capture evidence that would reach the director of Homeland Security's desk before lunchtime. At 7:45 a.m., Kyle Becker's patience ran out. He'd been watching Sam Washington for 15 minutes, and the old man's quiet contentment made his blood boil. Kyle stood up, work boots deliberately loud on the linoleum. He crossed the diner with calculated steps, drawing every eye in the place. Sam looked up as the shadow fell across his table. Kyle loomed over him, arms crossed, an expensive watch glinting. "Morning," Sam said politely. "You seem real comfortable here," Kyle said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Real comfortable for someone who doesn't belong. The diner went silent. Forks stopped moving. Chloe's hand moved toward her phone. "I'm sorry," Sam said. "This ain't your kind of place, old man. Makes decent people uncomfortable having your type around." "Mrs." Gable shifted nervously. Fire Chief Evans tensed. The diner held its breath. Sam had faced worse than playground bullies. But this was about dignity, about the right to exist in peace. "I'm just having coffee," Sam said quietly. "I'm not bothering anyone." "That's where you're wrong." Kyle leaned closer. "Your being here bothers me. Bothers a lot of good people." Outside, Leo Jenkins's camera captured every word. He'd started filming local color. Now he was documenting something much darker. The security camera recorded everything with perfect clarity. Audio, video, timestamps that would become crucial evidence. Sam reached for his wallet to leave, but Kyle's hand slammed down on the table. "Don't walk away when I'm talking to you." Coffee sloshed. Quarters scattered across the table and hit the floor. "Sir, please," Sam said. "I don't want trouble." "Trouble?" Kyle laughed without humor. "Old man, you are trouble. Everyone like you, acting like you own this place." Chloe pulled out her phone and started recording. She'd been silent too long. Chief Evans half stood, unsure how to intervene. "Mrs." Gable looked around frantically. Sam stood slowly, his military bearing evident despite his age. Something in his posture made Kyle step back. "I'm leaving now," Sam said with quiet dignity. But Kyle wasn't done. He'd started something in front of an audience. His pride wouldn't let him back down. Kyle stepped sideways, blocking Sam's path to the door. "You'll leave when I say you can leave." Physical intimidation, public humiliation, witnessed by dozens and recorded by multiple cameras. Kyle Becker had crossed a line that would destroy his life. At 7:52 a.m., Leo Jenkins zoomed in, his journalism training recognizing something significant. He had no idea he was documenting an assault that would reach federal investigators. Sam Washington stood trapped between the table and Kyle Becker's bulk. The construction worker's chest puffed out, feeding off the attention from the silent diner. This was his moment, his chance to put someone in their place with an audience watching. "Please move," Sam said, his voice steady despite the situation. "Make me, old man." Kyle's lips curled into a sneer. "What you gonna do? Call your mommy?" The racist taunt hit its target. Sam's jaw tightened, but his military training held. Never escalate. Never give them an excuse. But Kyle Becker wasn't looking for excuses anymore. "You people think you can just waltz in anywhere," Kyle continued, his voice rising. "Think you own everything? Well, this is my town, and I decide who belongs." Sam stepped to the left, trying to go around. Kyle shifted to block him. I said, "You're not leaving." That's when Kyle shoved him. Hard. Sam stumbled backward into the table. His hip caught the edge. Coffee cups crashed to the floor. The sound of breaking ceramic filled the diner like gunshots. "Hey!" Fire Chief Evans stood up. "That's enough." But Kyle was just getting started. The shove had felt good. The power, the control, the way the old man's eyes widened in shock. He wanted more. "Mind your own business, Evans." Kyle snarled without taking his eyes off Sam. Unless you want some, too. Chloe Davis raised her phone higher, making sure she captured everything. Her hands shook, but the video stayed steady. Stop it, Kyle! He's done nothing wrong! Shut up, Chloe! You want to keep your job? You'll stay out of this. The threat silenced her words, but not her camera. She kept recording. Sam tried to steady himself against the table. At 72, a hard shove could mean broken bones, serious injury. But what hurt more than his hip was the humiliation, the way every person in the diner was watching him be degraded. Now you're going to apologize, Kyle demanded, for making decent folks uncomfortable. I apologize if my presence upset you, Sam said quietly, but I've done nothing wrong. Wrong answer. Kyle's face turned red. If my presence upset you? You arrogant piece of the slap came without warning. Kyle's open hand cracked across Sam's cheek with brutal force. The sound echoed through the diner like a whip crack. Sam's head snapped to the side. His American flag pin caught the light as he staggered. Complete silence, then chaos. Jesus Christ. Chief Evans moved toward them. Oh my God. Mrs. Gable gasped. You asshole, Chloe screamed. Outside, Leo Jenkins's camera zoomed in automatically. Inside, Chloe's phone captured the perfect angle. The security camera recorded it all in high definition. Sam's hand went to his burning cheek. Blood trickled from where Kyle's ring had cut the skin. For a moment, the elderly veteran looked exactly like what he appeared to be, a helpless old man being brutalized by a racist thug. But then, something shifted in Sam's posture. His shoulders straightened, his chin lifted. 72 years of dignity and military training kicked in. You just made a serious mistake, Sam said quietly. Kyle laughed. Yeah? What are you going to do about it, Grandpa? Sam reached into his pocket. Not for a weapon, but for his phone. I'm going to call my son. Your son? Kyle's laughter got louder. What's he going to do? Come fight your battles? Sam scrolled to his contacts. The first name on the list. James, Director, Homeland Security. But Kyle Becker was too high on adrenaline and racism to notice the phone. He was performing for his audience, drunk on power and applause that wasn't coming. Hit me back, old man, Kyle demanded. Come on, show everyone what you're really made of. Chief Evans stepped closer. Kyle, you need to stop this right now. For what? Kyle spun around. You gonna arrest me? For what? Teaching some respect? That's when Sam dialed. The phone rang once, twice, then a voice answered. Dad, is everything okay? The diner went dead quiet. Something in that voice, that immediate concern, that authority, this wasn't someone's cousin or nephew. This was someone important. James, Sam said calmly. I'm fine, but there's been an incident. Kyle Becker's laughter died in his throat. Dad, are you hurt? Where are you? I can have agents there in 20 minutes. The voice came through Sam's phone speaker, clear and authoritative. Every person in Murphy's diner heard it. Every phone camera captured it. The security system recorded it all. Kyle Becker's face went white. Agents? He whispered. No, son, Sam said calmly into the phone. I'm not seriously injured, but I wanted you to hear about this directly before it hits the news. Before it hits the dad. What happened? Who hurt you? Sam looked directly at Kyle Becker, who had gone from aggressive bully to a statue in 5 seconds. A man named Kyle Becker just assaulted me at Murphy's diner in Millbrook. It's all been recorded. The silence in the diner was deafening. Sir, Chloe approached Sam carefully. Is that really your son? Sam nodded. James Washington. He runs the Department of Homeland Security. Fire Chief Evans slapped his forehead. Jesus Christ, Kyle, do you know what you just did? Mrs. Gable gasped so loud it echoed. The James Washington? The director? Dad, I'm sending a protective detail immediately. James's voice continued through the speaker. And our legal team will want statements from all witnesses. The word legal hit Kyle like ice water. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. His gold ring suddenly felt heavy on his fingers. His expensive watch seemed to tick louder. Oh, he whispered. Oh, oh, oh. Chloe's Instagram Live exploded. The viewer count jumped from 50 to 200 to 800 to 3,000 inches real time. Comments flooded the screen. Oh my God, is that the Homeland Security guy's dad? Kyle Becker is about to get destroyed. Screenshot everything. Someone's going to federal prison. Outside, Leo Jenkins nearly dropped his camera. He'd been filming what he thought was small-town racism. Instead, He'd captured an assault on the father of one of the most powerful men in America. "Dad, are the local authorities there yet?" James's voice cut through the chaos. "Not yet," Sam replied. "But Fire Chief Evans is here. He's a witness." Evans stepped forward, his face pale. "Mr. Washington, I saw everything. Kyle Becker assaulted you unprovoked." Kyle found his voice, a panicked crackle. "Wait, wait. This is just a misunderstanding. No harm done, right, Sam? I mean, Mr. Washington." "Sir." Sam looked at the man who'd called him garbage 5 minutes ago. The man who'd shoved him, slapped him, humiliated him in front of a room full of people. "The harm was done when you assumed who I was based on how I look," Sam said quietly. "But I didn't know. I didn't know who your son was. And that makes it acceptable?" Kyle's face crumpled. The reality was sinking in. He'd just committed a federal crime, on camera, against the father of the director of Homeland Security. Leo Jenkins's hands shook as he uploaded the raw footage to YouTube. His title, "Shocking Racist Attack. Director of Homeland Security's father assaulted Liv." The video would hit 50,000 views within the hour. James's voice came through the phone again. "Dad, I need you to know that federal investigators will be involved. This isn't because of my position. It's because what happened to you was a civil rights violation." Kyle Becker sat down heavily in the nearest chair. His construction crew t-shirt was soaked with sweat. His face had gone gray. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. I never would have." "You never would have what?" Sam asked. "Assaulted me if you knew I had powerful connections? But you were perfectly fine doing it when you thought I was powerless." The truth of it hit everyone in the room. This wasn't about mistaken identity. This was about character, about who you are when you think no one important is watching. Within 30 minutes, this local incident would be on the radar of federal investigators. But Kyle Becker's troubles were just beginning. Within 20 minutes, Sheriff Miller arrived at Murphy's Diner, her body camera recording everything. She'd known Sam Washington for years as a quiet, regular customer. She'd also known Kyle Becker as a troublemaker with connections to local contractors and politicians. The political calculations began immediately. "Morning, Sam." "Kyle." Sheriff Miller surveyed the scene, noting the broken coffee cups, the witnesses with phones out, the tension thick enough to cut. "Heard there was an incident." Chloe stepped forward, phone still recording. "Sheriff, Kyle Becker assaulted Mr. Washington. I got it all on video." Miller reviewed the footage on Chloe's phone. Her expression grew increasingly uncomfortable as she watched Kyle's racist language, the shove, the brutal slap. "Kyle, I'm going to need a statement." "Sam, you want to press charges?" Sam considered carefully. "I want this documented properly. Whatever happens next should follow the law." Meanwhile, the first news van pulled up outside, then another. Leo Jenkins's video had hit 100,000 views. The hashtag number Millbrook Diner was trending regionally. Mayor Thompson called Miller from City Hall. "Patricia, can we handle this quietly? Tourism season starts next month. Bad publicity could hurt everyone." Miller lowered her voice. "Tom, this is the director of Homeland Security's father. There's no handling this quietly." "Jesus Christ, how bad is it?" "Bad enough that I'm expecting federal investigators by lunch." The real estate agent who'd been eating breakfast slipped out the back door, already texting his developer clients. "Property values are about to tank. Pull all Millbrook listings." Local radio host Mike Stevens broke into regular programming. "Folks, we're getting reports of an alleged incident at Murphy's Diner this morning. Details are unclear, but both parties claim to be victims of a misunderstanding." The spin machine started immediately. Black SUVs appeared downtown 20 minutes later. Not for Sam, but for a security assessment standard protocol when a cabinet member's family was involved in any public incident. The regional news stations picked up the story by 10 a.m. Alleged assault at small town diner involves family member of high-ranking federal official. Local man claims incident blown out of proportion by outside agitators. Federal civil rights investigators reportedly en route to Millbrook. The town began choosing sides. Team Justice grew rapidly. Chloe's Instagram followers jumped from 800 to 15,000. Regional civil rights groups started making calls. Veteran organizations expressed outrage. The hashtag number Respect Our Elders began trending. Team Deflection circled the wagons. Local Facebook groups exploded with comments. "Small town values under attack. Political correctness destroying America. Outside forces exploiting a minor dispute." Kyle Becker, advised by his hastily hired lawyer, released a statement through the local newspaper. "I sincerely regret any misunderstanding that occurred this morning. Mr. Washington is a valued member of our community. Sometimes tensions run high in small businesses and words get taken out of context. No mention of the physical assault. No acknowledgement of the racist language. No actual apology. The half-hearted statement only made things worse." Sam declined most interview requests but agreed to speak with the regional news station. "This isn't about my son's position in government. It's about how we treat each other as human beings, how we see each other, whether we judge people by their character or their appearance." His dignity in the face of hatred made the story go viral faster. By noon, security experts were analyzing the camera footage. Clear evidence of premeditated assault, racial language unmistakable, a textbook civil rights violation. Sheriff Miller found herself in an impossible position. She couldn't bury this. Too many cameras, too much attention. But she also couldn't afford to alienate the local power structure that kept her in office. Her statement to reporters was carefully neutral. "The investigation is ongoing. All parties are cooperating. We take any allegations of assault seriously." Translation: buying time, hoping it would blow over. It wouldn't. Corporate headquarters for the Murphy's Diner chain issued their own statement. "We are investigating this morning's incident and do not condone discrimination or violence of any kind." Kyle's lawyer tried damage control. "My client maintains his innocence. The video footage has been taken out of context and doesn't show the full situation." But there was no context that made a racist assault acceptable. By 2 p.m., Leo Jenkins's video had reached 500,000 views. The comments section became a battleground. The local story was becoming a national symbol. As the story went national, investigators discovered this wasn't an isolated incident. Phone records and social media posts revealed a pattern that went deeper than anyone imagined. 48 hours after the assault, federal civil rights investigators arrived in Millbrook. Agent Sarah Carter led the team not because of James Washington's position, but because the video evidence had triggered automatic review protocols for hate crimes. What they discovered shocked everyone. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern. Agent Carter spread case files across the conference table at the sheriff's department. Each folder represented a different victim, a different incident, but the same ugly truth. March 2024. An elderly Hispanic man accused of shoplifting at Millbrook Grocery. Security footage later proved his innocence, but not before he was publicly humiliated and banned from the store. January 2024. A black family questioned about belonging at the community center during their child's basketball game. Police called for trespassing on public property. November 2023. A Native American veteran challenged at a voting location, required to show extra identification despite having proper credentials. September 2023. Asian college students reported as suspicious for studying at the public library after dark. Every incident involved minorities. Every incident involved public humiliation. Every incident was dismissed as a misunderstanding. Agent Carter's team found something else. A digital paper trail. Email chains between city council members discussing tourism concerns and changing demographics. Shadowy private Facebook groups with names like Millbrook Heritage Foundation and Citizens for Traditional Values. Coordination between local business owners to make certain customers feel unwelcome. The money trail was even more damning. Kyle Becker had donated $5,000 to the Millbrook Business Development Fund. That fund had lobbied for enhanced security measures throughout downtown. Those security measures included additional cameras and safety patrols, but only in certain neighborhoods, the ones where minorities had recently moved. Financial records showed a deliberate economic strategy. 3 minority-owned businesses had closed in 18 months. Property values in their areas had dropped, making them attractive to developers connected to city officials. It wasn't random racism, it was systematic exclusion for profit. Social media excavation revealed Kyle Becker's true thoughts. His Facebook history showed years of posts about protecting small-town values and maintaining community standards. Private group messages used language that would make a Klansman blush. More devastating were the deleted posts. Cyber forensics recovered messages from the night before the assault. Old man comes in acting like he owns the place. Time to remind him where he stands. Community meeting tomorrow about the problem. People might need to make an example. Some folks need to learn respect. Sometimes lessons get physical. Sheriff Miller's role became clear, too. Her response patterns showed deliberate negligence. Incident reports filed but never investigated. Complaints labeled as misunderstandings without follow-up. Media contacts minimized or buried entirely. When pressed by federal investigators, Miller admitted she'd received over a dozen complaints about discriminatory treatment in 18 months. Her action on those complaints? Zero. The witnesses began finding their voices. Janet Williams, a bank teller, came forward with internal documents showing Kyle Becker's loan applications contained discriminatory language about undesirable demographic shifts affecting property values. Chief Evans revealed he'd been documenting incidents for 6 months, keeping his own files because official channels were useless. Mrs. Gable, the mayor's wife, provided the biggest bombshell. Her husband had received multiple complaints about harassment and had deliberately chosen to ignore them. He said it wasn't worth the political cost, she admitted. He was afraid voters would blame him for attracting outside attention. The institutional audit revealed systematic failure. Federal funding for community policing programs had been misdirected. Civil rights compliance records were fabricated. Grant applications contained false information about diversity and inclusion efforts. Local journalists uncovered the broader network. Millbrook wasn't unique. Similar patterns existed in 7 neighboring towns. Coordinated social media campaigns, shared legal strategies, political donations linking officials across county lines. The resistance had been organized, funded, and strategic. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a civil rights attorney, arrived with her team to represent the victims. She'd seen this before. Small towns using economic pressure and social intimidation to maintain racial exclusion. This represents a modern form of sundown town tactics, she explained to reporters. Instead of signs saying certain people aren't welcome, they use systematic harassment, economic pressure, and official indifference. The scope was staggering. Financial records, email chains, social media coordination, and witness testimony all painting a picture of deliberate, systematic racism designed to exclude minorities from economic and social participation. Community members formed the Millbrook Unity Coalition. Chloe Davis co-founded it with Fire Chief Evans, Mrs. Gable, Reverend Johnson from the Black Church, and Rabbi Sarah Miller, representing interfaith support. Their goal wasn't just justice for Sam Washington, it was dismantling the entire system of exclusion. As evidence mounted, Kyle Becker realized his problems extended far beyond one slapped veteran. Anonymous threats began arriving at the investigators' hotel rooms. Someone didn't want the full truth coming out. 72 hours after the assault, Sam Washington's quiet life became a nightmare. Phone calls started at 3 a.m., heavy breathing, racist slurs, death threats that made federal agents wince. "Your boy can't protect you forever, old man. We know where you live." Accidents happen to people who don't mind their business. The harassment escalated. Sam's garbage was scattered across his lawn every morning. His mailbox was smashed with a baseball bat. Racial slurs were spray-painted on his garage door in blood-red letters. Worse than the property damage was the isolation. Neighbors avoided eye contact. The grocery clerk pretended not to see him. His Tuesday coffee routine became impossible. Chloe Davis faced her own terror campaign. Anonymous messages flooded her social media. Immigration status can change quickly for loudmouth waitresses. Your work schedule is posted online with your home address. Her followers received coordinated harassment. Fake accounts posted her personal information. Someone created deepfake videos showing her vandalizing property. Leo Jenkins's college experience turned hellish. His email was hacked, sending racist memes to professors. His academic records were leaked online. Fake accounts impersonated him, posting violent threats. The cyber attacks were sophisticated, coordinated. Someone with resources was orchestrating a campaign to silence the witnesses. Sheriff Miller visited Sam privately, with no body camera recording. "Look, Sam, this has gone too far. Maybe consider dropping the charges, for everyone's sake." "Whose sake?" Sam asked. "The town's. People are getting hurt. Property values are dropping. Businesses are suffering. Because I got assaulted? Because you made it public. Some things are better handled quietly." "Are you asking me to let a racist attack slide to protect property values?" Miller looked away. "I'm asking you to think about the consequences." "I am," Sam said. "That's why I'm not backing down." Mayor Thompson called James directly, bypassing Sam entirely. "Director Washington, your father is creating divisions. Perhaps some family influence could resolve this privately. Are you suggesting I interfere with a federal investigation? Some situations require flexibility." You're calling felony assault a minor incident? The call ended abruptly. Thompson had made things worse. Kyle Becker's legal team filed nuisance lawsuits. Defamation claims against Chloe, copyright violations against Leo, business interference charges against Unity Coalition supporters. The legal harassment was designed to bankrupt the witnesses. Sam's health deteriorated. His blood pressure spiked. Sleep became impossible. His doctor prescribed anxiety medication. At 2 a.m. on Friday, Sam sat alone in his kitchen, staring at his Purple Heart. For the first time, doubt crept in. Maybe Miller was right. Fighting back was hurting people. Chloe could lose her job. Leo's education was at risk. His phone rang. It was James calling from Washington. "Dad, I'm driving up. Don't argue. Son, I'm tired. Maybe this isn't worth it." "What did you tell me when Bobby Martinez was bullying kids at school?" Sam remembered. "Bullies only stop when someone stands up. If you stay quiet, nothing changes." The next person might not have a son who can help. James arrived at 4 a.m., finding his father in the darkness, looking older than 72. "They're trying to break you, Dad. That's what bullies do when they can't win fairly. But I'm bringing trouble to good people. If you surrender, those people face the same thing next time, with no cameras, no protection, and no justice." The father-son conversation became the turning point. Sam's resolve returned. Evidence tampering began immediately. Murphy's security system suffered a catastrophic failure. The sheriff's files were accidentally deleted. County servers crashed during scheduled updates. Someone was spending serious money to cover tracks. Direct threats arrived at Homeland Security. Federal officials' families aren't immune to accidents. A security detail was assigned to Sam. His privacy evaporated. Federal agents followed him everywhere. The community split into armed camps. Pro-Sam supporters organized vigils. Anti-Sam factions spread rumors about federal occupation. Financial pressure mounted. Kyle's allies filed endless legal challenges. Court dates multiplied. Legal fees skyrocketed. Just when Sam considered surrender, an unexpected ally emerged with evidence that would change everything. On day 5, an unexpected ally knocked on Sam Washington's door. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, the civil rights attorney from the state ACLU, didn't come alone. Behind her stood Marcus Thompson, a black cybersecurity specialist and military veteran who'd volunteered his services. "One veteran for another," Marcus said simply. Within hours, Marcus had recovered what everyone thought was lost forever. Despite the crashed security system at Murphy's Diner, he found something the saboteurs missed: automatic cloud backup. Every deleted file, every lost video, every piece of evidence they tried to destroy was sitting in a server backup that updated every 30 minutes. "Amateur hour," Marcus muttered, pulling up pristine footage of Kyle Becker's assault. They deleted local files but forgot about cloud synchronization. Dr. Martinez spread new evidence across Sam's kitchen table. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Chloe's phone case. Her cousin had installed a tiny hidden camera for her safety after previous incidents. The device, smaller than a quarter, had captured Kyle Becker's immediate reaction after the assault. "Kyle," to his assistant, "get me Mayor Thompson on the phone. We need to control this narrative before it explodes nationally." The smoking gun proved premeditation and conspiracy. Marcus's digital forensics revealed more devastating evidence. Phone records showed 47 calls between Kyle Becker and Mayor Thompson in the 3 days following the assault. A private group chat among Millbrook business leaders contained explicit racial language and coordinated response strategies. The deleted social media posts told the real story. Phase 1, working perfectly. 3 minority businesses closed this year. Property values stabilizing in target neighborhoods. Need to maintain pressure on remaining problem residents. Small gestures send big messages. If the old man's family has connections, we handle it like the others. Money talks louder than justice. Janet Williams, the bank teller, came forward with internal documents that shattered Kyle's defense. His business loan applications contained discriminatory language about demographic concerns affecting property values. Bank meeting minutes discussed maintaining community standards through selective lending practices. The financial conspiracy was massive. Property development deals were contingent on demographic management. Insurance claims against minority-owned businesses showed suspicious patterns. City contracts favored companies that supported the exclusion campaign. The veteran network mobilized nationwide. Colonel Sarah Davis, retired, issued a statement. "American veterans don't abandon each other. Sam Washington served his country with honor. We stand with him. Social media exploded with support. The number veterans for Sam trended nationally. Military bases shared Sam's story. VA hospitals posted solidarity messages. Dr. Martinez assembled a legal powerhouse. Federal civil rights prosecutors joined the team. Military legal advocates offered pro bono services. Media law specialists protected witnesses from harassment. Chloe Davis found her voice through the Unity Coalition. Her video statement went viral. "I'm not just fighting for my job. I'm fighting for every person who's been made to feel like they don't belong in their own community." Leo Jenkins's documentary project evolved into a full investigation. Additional footage surfaced from his original filming. Interviews with affected families, historical context of exclusion practices, expert analysis of systematic discrimination patterns. The reversal of intimidation began. Dr. Martinez filed restraining orders against the harassment campaigns. Nuisance lawsuits were dismissed with prejudice. Federal protection extended to all witnesses. Marcus upgraded security for everyone involved, not federal agents, but private security veterans supporting Sam's cause. The harassment stopped immediately when perpetrators realized they were being watched by professionals. The evidence vault grew daily. 47 hours of video documentation, 200 pages of written testimony, financial records spanning 3 years, digital communications proving coordination, and expert analysis confirming civil rights violations. Independent journalists arrived from major outlets. National civil rights organizations sent representatives. Legal scholars offered academic support. The small-town story became a case study in modern resistance to racism. Sam regained his strength, seeing the widespread community support. "I thought I was fighting alone. Now I see this was never about just me." The opposition's strategy backfired spectacularly. Their harassment campaign had generated more evidence against them. Their legal intimidation brought national attention. Their financial pressure triggered a federal financial crimes investigation. Mrs. Gable, the mayor's wife, provided the final devastating blow. She'd been secretly recording her husband's phone calls for months, documenting his role in the conspiracy. "I couldn't stay silent while my husband enabled systematic racism," she told investigators. Her recordings revealed coordination between city officials, business leaders, and law enforcement to maintain racial exclusion. The town meeting was scheduled for Friday night. Both sides prepared for the final confrontation. The pro-justice coalition had documented evidence, witness testimony, legal support, and national attention. They offered a reconciliation pathway, acknowledgement, accountability, and systematic reform. The resistance faction tried last-ditch intimidation, economic fear tactics, political pressure campaigns, and anonymous threats against community leaders. But their power was broken. Too many people had found courage. Too much evidence was public. Too many allies had joined the fight. The night before the town meeting, someone leaked Kyle Becker's private messages to social media. Screenshots spread across every platform. His real thoughts about minorities, his coordination with officials, his celebration of successful exclusion tactics. The whole town was about to see exactly who Kyle Becker really was. Day 6 brought an explosion that shook Millbrook to its foundation. Leo Jenkins's documentary trailer dropped on YouTube at 6 a.m. The Sam Washington Story, When Dignity Meets Power. 500,000 views in 6 hours, 1 million by noon. Comments flooded faster than moderators could process. Number Justice for Sam trended nationally alongside number Millbrook Accountability. Celebrity endorsements poured in. Professional athletes shared the video. Musicians posted solidarity messages. The leaked screenshots of Kyle Becker's private messages went viral simultaneously. His real thoughts, captured in his own words. "These people need to learn their place. Small actions send big messages. If we don't maintain standards, property values tank and our community changes forever." The old man got lucky with his son's connections. Most don't have that privilege. The racist language was undeniable. The coordination was documented. The conspiracy was exposed. Reverend Johnson organized an interfaith prayer vigil that drew 300 people from 5 counties. Military Honor Guard volunteers stood at attention. Local business owners attended, many publicly for the first time. Media coverage was respectful and extensive. The economic response was swift and devastating for Kyle's supporters. Murphy's Diner faced a boycott that cut business by 60%. Corporate headquarters received thousands of angry emails. A franchise agreement review was initiated immediately. Competitor diners saw business surge as customers voted with their wallets. Chloe Davis launched Truth from the Front Lines on Instagram Live, attracting 50,000 regular viewers. Daily updates from Millbrook, witness interviews, community healing conversations, educational content about civil rights history. Each live stream gained momentum. Viewers shared personal stories of discrimination. Families posted photos with service members. The hashtag number Respect Our Elders connected generations of Americans who'd faced similar struggles. Leo Jenkins's journalism program provided an additional platform through Small Town, Big Courage. Live-streamed conversations with experts, legal process explanations, and community voices that humanized the larger struggle. State-level politicians felt the pressure. The governor issued a statement supporting the federal investigation. The State Civil Rights Commission launched a broader inquiry into rural discrimination patterns. The Tourism Board quietly distanced itself from Millbrook leadership. National attention intensified when congressional representatives issued statements supporting Sam. The Veterans Affairs Department offered resources. National civil rights organizations mobilized their network. Corporate accountability accelerated. The Murphy's Diner CEO was forced to issue a public apology and announce mandatory diversity training for all franchises. A community investment fund was established with $500,000 for inclusive economic development. Local business pressure mounted as the Chamber of Commerce called emergency meetings. Property developers reassessed Millbrook investments. Insurance companies reviewed risk assessments for discriminatory business practices. Banking relationships faced scrutiny as federal regulators investigated lending patterns. The counter-movement organized its final push. A Save Our Community rally was scheduled to compete with the town meeting. Outside political groups arrived with professional organizers. Social media disinformation campaigns spread false information about federal overreach and constitutional violations, but their messaging fell flat. Too much evidence was public. Too many local voices supported justice. Too many allies had joined the movement. Security concerns escalated as extremist groups threatened to disrupt the town meeting. Federal authorities monitored communications. Local law enforcement requested state backup. Community leaders organized peaceful security protocols. The momentum peaked as dawn broke on the day of the town meeting. National media trucks filled downtown Millbrook. Community members arrived from surrounding counties. Legal teams finalized presentations for the evening showdown. Sam Washington stood at his kitchen window, an American flag pin positioned precisely on his cardigan collar. Today, Millbrook would decide its future. Today, dignity would face down hatred in front of the entire nation. The backup Kyle Becker never saw coming had arrived. Not just federal badges and powerful connections, but an entire movement of Americans who believed justice wasn't negotiable. At 7 p.m., the Millbrook Community Center was packed beyond capacity. 400 seats, 600 people. An overflow crowd stood outside, watching a live stream on their phones. National media filled the designated sections. Security was visible but professional. Sam Washington entered with quiet dignity, an American flag pin prominent on his cardigan. Half the auditorium rose in a standing ovation. He nodded respectfully and took his front row seat. Behind him sat Chloe Davis, Leo Jenkins, Fire Chief Evans, and Mrs. Gable, the Unity Coalition in full force. Kyle Becker arrived with his legal team, avoiding all eye contact. He slumped in the back with his remaining supporters, his face gray with stress. His expensive watch felt heavy. His gold rings caught no light. Federal mediator Linda Hayes called for order. Experienced, neutral, she commanded immediate respect. We're here to address the assault of Sam Washington and determine a community response. Evidence will be presented. All sides will be heard. Round 1. Video evidence. Leo Jenkins' documentary clips played on massive screens. The original assault footage, complete and unedited. Security camera angles showing clear aggression. Audio enhancement revealing every racist word. Kyle's immediate conspiracy planning with Mayor Thompson. Gasps rippled through the crowd at footage they hadn't seen. Several of Kyle's supporters shifted uncomfortably. Cell phones recorded everything. Round 2. Pattern documentation. Dr. Martinez presented systematic evidence with laser precision, a timeline of 12 incidents over 18 months. Financial connections proving coordination. Email chains showing deliberate planning. Expert testimony confirming civil rights violations. This wasn't random racism, Dr. Martinez stated clearly. This was systematic exclusion for economic gain. The testimony phase began. Chloe Davis approached the microphone, her hands steady despite the cameras. I kept silent for too long because I was afraid. Fear of losing my job, fear of retaliation. But I learned that silence enables cruelty. Her voice grew stronger. I won't be silent anymore when people are treated as less than human. Applause erupted from half the crowd. Fire Chief Evans testified next. As a public servant, I failed this community by not acting on what I witnessed. I documented harassment but didn't report it officially. My silence enabled escalation. He faced Kyle directly. That ends today. Mrs. Gable's testimony shattered any remaining defenses. I can no longer protect my husband's political career while he enables systematic racism. She revealed private conversations, documented pressure tactics, and admitted her knowledge of the exclusion conspiracy. Leadership means choosing what's right over what's convenient. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Sam Washington rose slowly, commanding immediate attention. I didn't serve my country to come home and face hatred in my own community. His voice carried decades of dignity. This isn't about my son's position. It's about every parent who wants their children to live with respect. He paused, a pin-drop silence falling over the room. I'm willing to forgive Kyle Becker, but forgiveness requires acknowledgement, and acknowledgement requires change. Kyle's lawyer whispered frantically. Kyle stood, his face flushed red. This has been blown completely out of proportion. One bad moment doesn't define someone's character. Doctor, Martinez interrupted calmly. Actually, Mr. Becker, we have additional evidence received this afternoon. The game-changing moment. A recently discovered email from Kyle Becker to business associates sent 3 days before the assault. Dr. Martinez read from the printed evidence. Phase 1 successful. 3 minority businesses closed this year. Property value stabilizing in target areas. Tourism committee pleased with demographic management. Maintain pressure on remaining targets for Phase 2 completion. The auditorium exploded. Half the crowd was shocked, half vindicated. Kyle's face was completely white. Even his supporters stared at him with horror. Mediator Hayes called for order. Mr. Becker, would you like to respond? A long pause. Kyle realized his complete isolation. His own supporters were backing away. I may have used poor judgment in some communications. Sam Washington stood again, the picture of grace under pressure. Kyle, the measure of a person isn't their mistakes. It's how they respond when the truth comes to light. The resolution proposals were clear. Immediate actions. Kyle Becker's detailed public apology. His resignation from all leadership positions. Financial restitution to affected businesses. Mandatory civil rights training for city employees. Systematic changes. Independent oversight of law enforcement. A civilian review board for discrimination complaints. Inclusive economic development. Community healing programs. The community vote was decisive. 347 inches favor of full accountability measures, 89 against or abstaining, and 164 supporting reconciliation with strict conditions. Justice had won, but the healing would take time. As the crowd filed out, Sam Washington shook hands with former opponents. Dignity had triumphed over hatred. But the real test would come tomorrow, when the cameras left and the real change had to begin. 3 months later, Millbrook was transformed. Federal civil rights charges were filed against Kyle Becker. A $2.3 million settlement compensated affected community members. Federal monitoring of local law enforcement would continue for 3 years. The local leadership changed completely. Mayor Thompson resigned, replaced by Chloe Davis in a landslide election. Sheriff Miller retired early, with Fire Chief Evans winning her position unanimously. 4 new Unity Platform Council members were elected. Murphy's Diner reopened under new management with mandatory diversity training. 3 minority-owned businesses opened within months, supported by the Community Investment Fund, which had reached $500,000. New tourism campaigns advertised Millbrook as a place where everyone belongs. Sam Washington returned to his quiet routine, now a respected elder statesman. Every Tuesday, he still ordered coffee, black, and wheat toast at Murphy's. The new management knew his order and never charged him. Mayor Chloe Davis balanced her duties with waitressing 1 day a week to remember where I came from. She began planning Millbrook's first diversity festival. Leo Jenkins's documentary won the State Journalism Award and earned him a full scholarship. His follow-up series, Small Towns, Big Change, was picked up by a major network. The healing was real. Interfaith reconciliation services drew participants from across political lines. Kyle Becker attended quietly, participating in community service without publicity. Sam became a regular guest speaker at Millbrook High School. "Dignity isn't something you're given," he would tell the students. "It's something you maintain." The ripple effects spread nationally. 47 communities implemented reforms using the Millbrook model. Congressional legislation was proposed based on the legal precedents. Total views of the original videos and documentary reached 12.7 million. The community fund exceeded $847,000. Similar investigations were launched in 23 states. 6 months later, a detective called Sam about a new case in a neighboring county. "Sam, we have another situation involving an elderly veteran. We could use someone who understands dignity under fire." Sam paused, looking at his American flag pin. "Some fights are worth fighting twice, detective. When do you need me?" A lesson for all of us. The true measure of our character isn't defined by our titles or connections, but by how we treat others when we believe no one of consequence is watching. Dignity is a right, not a privilege. And standing up to injustice, no matter how small it may seem, can empower an entire community to demand change. What did you think of Sam's response to the situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that matter. Officer Derek Sullivan's boots crunched on the pristine sidewalk of Brookhaven's widest enclave. He spotted the black man in an expensive suit, and his face twisted with disgust. "What the? You think you're doing here, boy?" Sullivan's voice cut through the morning silence like a whip. The man turned. "Officer, I." "Shut your mouth." Sullivan grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it to examine his watch. "Is this Rolex stolen? Are you breaking into these houses?" He shoved the man backward. "Turn around. Hands behind your back. Now, officer, please." Sullivan slammed him against a luxury car, the metallic thud echoing down the street. "I said, turn around, you piece of... You don't belong here." The man's expensive suit wrinkled against the hood, his calm voice barely containing rage. "I live in this house." Sullivan laughed cruelly. "Sure you do. And I'm Barack Obama. Have you ever witnessed such raw, humiliating hatred directed at someone simply for existing?" 9:47 a.m. 13 minutes until the call. Terrence Washington felt the cold metal of his BMW's hood against his chest. 23 years of federal service, and he was being treated like a common criminal on his own property. ID. Now. Sullivan's breath reeked of stale coffee and contempt. Terrence slowly reached for his wallet, his movements deliberate. Any sudden gesture could escalate this beyond repair. His fingers found the leather billfold, Italian crafted, a gift from his wife, Kesha, after his last promotion. Sullivan snatched it, flipping through the contents like he was searching for contraband. "Terrence Washington," he read mockingly. "What kind of made-up name is that?" "It's my name, officer." Sullivan held up the Federal Credit Union Platinum card, studying it with suspicion. "Where'd you steal this from? This is government, issued." Across the street, Mrs. Davis's live stream was gaining traction. Notification sounds pinged from her phone as the viewer count climbed. "This is absolutely disgusting," she whispered into the camera. "He lives here. I've seen him every morning for 3 years." The comments section exploded. "Call the FBI. This is 2025, not 1955. Sue them for everything." But darker voices emerged from anonymous accounts. "He looks suspicious to me, probably casing the neighborhood. These people don't belong here." Sullivan's radio crackled. "Unit 47 requesting backup on Maple Drive." "Copy that. 47. Unit 23, en route." Terrence's phone buzzed. The caller ID read, "Director Hayes, FBI." He declined the call, checking his Omega Seamaster. The Federal Credit Union card wasn't the only thing Sullivan had missed. The small eagle insignia on his lapel, barely visible unless you knew what to look for, caught the morning sunlight. "You got a permit for this neighborhood, boy?" Sullivan shoved the wallet back at him. "Rich folks around here pay good money to keep your kind out." "Officer Sullivan." Terrence read the nameplate with deliberate clarity. "I'm going to ask you to step back." "You'll ask me?" Sullivan's hand moved to his taser. "You're giving me orders now?" The sound of another patrol car approaching made Terrence's jaw tighten. This was escalating exactly as his civil rights training had predicted it would. Multiple officers, residential setting, no immediate witnesses except social media. Officer Jessica Riley stepped out of the second cruiser, immediately sizing up the scene. Sullivan waved her over with obvious relief. Got a suspicious individual here. Claims he lives in the Morrison house. Riley looked at the imposing colonial behind them. Easily worth $2 million, then back at Terrence. Her expression said everything. Do you have any documentation proving residence? Riley asked, her tone more professional but equally skeptical. Terrence reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Both officers tensed, their hands moving toward their weapons. He produced a set of keys, the BMW's distinctive fob prominent among them. House keys, car keys, mailbox key. Sullivan grabbed them, examining each one. Could have made copies. Could have stolen the car. Mrs. Davis's voice carried across the street. Officers, he's lived here for 3 years. His name is on the mailbox. Ma'am, please step back from the situation, Riley called out. We're conducting an investigation. Investigation into what? Mrs. Davis shot back, still filming. A man standing in his own driveway? 9:52 a.m. 8 minutes remaining. Terrence's phone buzzed again. Same caller, same decline, but this time he allowed himself the faintest smile. Sullivan was too focused on the keys to notice. What's funny, boy? Sullivan's voice was getting louder, more aggressive. You think this is some kind of joke? No, officer. I think this is exactly what I expected. The comment hit Sullivan wrong. Expected? Are you saying you planned this? More neighbors were emerging. The Millers from next door, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Chen walked her poodle, stopping to stare. The Garcia twins on their morning jog, slowing to watch. Some looked concerned, others looked satisfied, like they'd been waiting for exactly this moment. Ashley Peterson appeared from her corner house, her HOA coordinator badge prominent on her jogging outfit. She'd been the one person who'd never welcomed Terrence to the neighborhood. Officers, Ashley approached with obvious authority. We've had several break-ins lately. Better safe than sorry. Riley nodded appreciatively. See, the community is concerned about security. I've lived here since 2022, Terrence said quietly. I've never met with any HOA coordinator. Because you're not supposed to be here, Ashley replied coldly. This neighborhood has standards. The live stream was viral now. 2,847 viewers and climbing. Local news outlets were picking up the feed. Chloe Kim from Channel 7 was already en route. Mrs. Davis had sent her the link directly. Hashtags began trending. Number Brookhaven racial profiling. Number Justice for Terrence. Number Blacktail stories. But Terrence wasn't watching social media. He was watching his Omega, counting down. The small encrypted message indicator blinked once, twice. His federal contact was getting impatient. You know what? Sullivan stepped closer, invading his personal space. I think we need to take a ride downtown. Let the detectives sort this out. On what charge? Trespassing, public disturbance, failure to comply with lawful orders. Terrence looked directly into Sullivan's eyes. Officer, I strongly recommend you wait. Wait for what, smart guy? You'll see. 9:56 a.m. 4 minutes remaining. The steel handcuffs clicked into place, biting into Terrence's wrists as Sullivan forced him against the patrol car. The expensive fabric of his suit jacket scraped against the rough metal, but his expression remained unnervingly calm. You have the right to remain silent, Sullivan began, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Officer Sullivan, Terrence's voice cut through the Miranda rights. Badge number 4,471. I want you to remember that number. Sullivan paused mid-sentence. What did you say? Your badge number. 4,471. I want you to remember it. Something in Terrence's tone made Sullivan's confidence waver for just a moment. Then, anger flared. You're threatening me? Boy, I'm simply asking you to remember your badge number. 9:58 a.m., 2 minutes remaining. The third patrol car arrived with Sergeant Evans behind the wheel. His 15 years of experience showed in the way he immediately assessed the scene. Handcuffed black man, 2 officers, a growing crowd, phones recording everywhere. What have we got? Evans approached with cautious authority. Trespassing suspect, Riley reported. Claims he lives in the Morrison house. Evans looked at the imposing colonial, then at Terrence's obviously expensive attire. Something didn't add up, but protocol was protocol. Any ID? Sullivan held up the wallet, says Terrence Washington. Probably fake. The Federal Credit Union card, too. Evans examined it more closely than Sullivan had. These are hard to counterfeit. Probably stolen, Ashley Peterson interjected, stepping closer to the officers. I'm the HOA coordinator. I know everyone who belongs here. Mrs. Davis's live stream had exploded. The viewer count hit 8,000 and was climbing exponentially. Her comments section was a war zone. This is disgusting. Where are the civil rights lawyers? Someone call the FBI. Racist cops need to be fired. But anonymous accounts pushed back. Good police work. Keep the neighborhood safe. He doesn't belong there. Local news vans were already dispatched. Chloe Kim from Channel 7 was 5 minutes out. 2 other stations had picked up the feed. Evans studied Terrence more carefully. The man's composure was unusual, not the nervous energy of someone caught in wrongdoing, not the anger of someone falsely accused. Something else entirely. Mr. Washington, can you provide proof of residence? The keys your officer confiscated open my front door, my car, and my mailbox, Terrence replied evenly. Mrs. Davis across the street can verify I've lived here for 3 years. Keys can be copied, Sullivan insisted. Cars can be stolen. Evans wasn't convinced, but the crowd was growing larger and more restless. The Millers were openly filming now. Mrs. Chen had called her husband. The Garcia twins had stopped jogging entirely. Look, Evans said, trying to de-escalate. Let's just verify the residence. No. Sullivan stepped forward aggressively. I'm not playing games with this. He's trespassing. He's been uncooperative, and now he's making threats. What threats? Evans asked. Told me to remember my badge number. That's intimidation. Terrence's phone rang again, the 3rd time. Director Hayes. FBI glowed on the screen for everyone to see. Sullivan grabbed the phone. Drug dealer calling? Your parole officer, maybe? He answered mockingly. Hello, this is Officer Sullivan. Your boy Terrence is under arrest. The voice on the other end was sharp, authoritative. Excuse me? I said your buddy's under arrest. You want to post bail? Call the station. Officer, this is FBI Director Hayes. I need to speak with Agent Washington immediately. Sullivan's grin faltered. FBI? Yeah, right. And I'm the president. Evans stepped closer, alarm bells going off. Sullivan, hang up the phone. But Sullivan was committed now. Listen here, whoever you are. This is a police matter. Your friend is going downtown. Agent Washington is a federal officer. I'm ordering you to release him immediately. Agent? Sullivan laughed harshly. This guy? He's a criminal. The line went dead. 9:59 a.m. 1 minute remaining. The silence that followed was deafening. Evans stared at Sullivan, whose face had gone pale. Riley looked between her partners, suddenly uncertain. What if that was real? Riley whispered. It wasn't, Sullivan insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. It's some kind of setup. Mrs. Davis's live stream had reached 15,000 viewers. The comments were flying so fast they were unreadable. 3 news vans were now visible in the distance. Terrence remained perfectly still against the patrol car, but his eyes found his watch. The small display showed an encrypted message. Federal response authorized. Officers, Terrence spoke quietly, but his voice carried an unmistakable authority. I'm going to give you one more opportunity to de-escalate this situation. Shut up, Sullivan snapped, but the confidence was gone. Ashley Peterson stepped forward. Officers, I don't care who he thinks he is. This is a gated community. We have rules. Actually, Mrs. Davis called out from across the street, her phone still recording. This isn't a gated community, Ashley, and he pays more property taxes than you do. The crowd murmured. More neighbors had emerged, some supportive, others skeptical, all recording. Evans was sweating now. 15 years of experience told him this was going sideways, fast. The man's composure, the federal credit card, the phone call, too many red flags. Sullivan, maybe we should. No, Sullivan's voice cracked slightly. I'm not backing down to some. He caught himself, but the word hung in the air anyway. Terrence turned his head slowly, looking directly at Sullivan. Somewhat, officer. The crowd went dead silent. Even the live stream comments paused. You know what you were going to say, Terrence continued, his voice deadly calm. Say it. Sullivan's jaw worked, but no words came. 10 a.m. The call. Terrence's phone rang for the 4th time. This time, he looked directly at Sullivan. I think you should answer that. Evans reached for the phone, but Sullivan snatched it away. No, I'm handling this, he answered with forced bravado. Sullivan, here. Officer Sullivan, this is FBI Director Hayes. I'm ordering you to release Agent Washington immediately. I don't care who you think you are. Badge number 4471. Officer Derek Sullivan, Brookhaven Police Department. 12 years of service? 17 complaints filed against you in the past 2 years, 89% involving people of color. Sullivan's face went white. Evans stepped closer, trying to hear. You have exactly 60 seconds to remove those handcuffs, or I'm dispatching federal agents to your location. The line went dead again. Sullivan stared at the phone, his hand trembling slightly. Federal agents? Riley whispered. Evans was already reaching for his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need to speak with Chief Morrison immediately. But it was too late. In the distance, black SUVs were already visible, moving fast toward Maple Drive. Terrence finally smiled. The black SUVs moved through Brookhaven like sharks cutting through still water. 3 vehicles, tinted windows, federal plates. They stopped in perfect formation at the end of Maple Drive. Sullivan stared at them, his mouth dry. Those aren't. Those can't be. Federal agents, Evans finished grimly. His radio crackled with the dispatcher's confusion. Chief Morrison was en route, but these SUVs had arrived first. Terrence remained motionless against the patrol car, handcuffs still tight around his wrists, but his demeanor had shifted. The quiet composure was now something else entirely. The stillness of a predator who knows the trap is about to spring. Officer Sullivan, Terrence spoke without turning around. I'd like you to look at my lapel pin again. Sullivan's eyes dropped to the small eagle insignia he'd ignored earlier. The morning light caught the detailed metalwork. Not costume jewelry, but government-issued sterling silver. What is that? FBI service pin. 23 years. The words hit like a physical blow. Riley stepped backward instinctively. Evans closed his eyes and muttered a prayer. From the lead SUV, a tall black woman emerged. FBI Director Sarah Hayes moved with the purposeful stride of someone accustomed to command. Her tailored suit was immaculate, her expression granite. Mrs. Davis's live stream exploded. 22,000 viewers and climbing. The comment section was pure chaos. Oh my God, he's really FBI! Those cops are so screwed! Lawsuit incoming! Number Blacktail Stories needs to cover this. Behind Director Hayes came 6 more agents, a coordinated unit in dark suits and earpieces. They moved like they'd done this 100 times before. Ashley Peterson was backing away slowly, her HOA badge suddenly feeling very small and very meaningless. Agent Washington, Hayes's voice carried across the street with crisp authority. Status report. Terrence finally turned, the handcuffs forcing an awkward movement. Currently detained by Officer Sullivan, badge number 4,471, on suspicion of trespassing. Trespassing on your own property? Apparently. Hayes's gaze swept over Sullivan, Riley, and Evans like a blade. Officer Sullivan, I believe we spoke on the phone. Sullivan's voice came out as a croak. You're really FBI. Director Hayes, Federal Bureau of Investigation. She produced her credentials with practiced efficiency. Agent Washington is my assistant director for the Civil Rights Division. The words hit the crowd like a thunderclap. Assistant Director, Civil Rights Division. Evans was frantically trying to process the magnitude of the mistake. Ma'am, we were responding to a call about suspicious activity. Suspicious activity? Hayes's voice could have cut steel. A federal agent standing in his own driveway? Riley found her voice. We didn't know he was. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You saw a black man in an expensive neighborhood and made assumptions. More neighbors had gathered. The Millers looked mortified. Mrs. Chen was openly apologizing to no one in particular. The Garcia twins were live streaming on their own phones now. But Hayes wasn't interested in the crowd. Her focus was laser sharp on Sullivan. Officer Sullivan, how many complaints have been filed against you in the past 24 months? I don't know the exact. 17 complaints, 89% involving people of color. Would you like me to read them aloud? Sullivan's face had gone gray. That's not relevant too. Officer Derek Sullivan, badge 4,471, April 2023. Excessive force complaint, dismissed. June 2023. Racial profiling allegation, sustained. August 2023. Inappropriate language, verbal warning, September 2023. Stop, Evans stepped forward. Director Hayes, I apologize for this situation. We will release Agent Washington immediately, but Hayes held up a hand. I'm not finished. October 2023. Unlawful detention, settled out of court. November 2023. Please, Sullivan whispered. December 2023. Harassment complaint, dismissed on a technicality. January 2024. Why are you doing this? Sullivan's voice cracked. Hayes stepped closer. Because Agent Washington has been investigating systematic bias in law enforcement for the past 18 months. This interaction is being documented as part of a federal civil rights case study. The silence was deafening. Mrs. Davis's phone nearly slipped from her hands. She was recording a federal investigation. Case study? Riley managed. Operation Mirror, Hayes continued. Agent Washington has been documenting bias patterns across 47 police departments nationwide. Brookhaven PD was selected based on complaint ratios and demographic data. Terrence spoke quietly. I moved to this neighborhood specifically to test response patterns. Expensive area, predominantly white, history of suspicious person calls. Sullivan stared at him in horror. You set this up? I bought a house and stood in my own driveway, Terrence replied calmly. Everything else was your choice. Evans was trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Agent Washington, we apologize for any. Sergeant Evans, Hayes interrupted. Your department receives $2.3 million in federal funding annually. Civil rights violations can trigger federal oversight and budget review. The financial implications hit Evans like a freight train. Federal funding paid for equipment, training, half their annual budget. Hayes gestured to one of her agents, who approached with bolt cutters. The handcuffs fell away from Terrence's wrists with a metallic click. He rubbed the circulation back into his hands, straightening his suit jacket. For the first time, he looked like what he was, a federal agent with 23 years of experience and the full weight of the U.S. government behind him. Officer Sullivan, Terrence's voice carried a new authority. Do you remember what I told you about remembering your badge number? Sullivan nodded mutely. This incident is now a federal record. Badge 4,471. Officer Derek Sullivan. Unlawful detention of a federal agent. Civil rights violation. Abuse of authority. The live stream had reached 45,000 viewers. News helicopters were visible in the distance. This wasn't just a neighborhood incident anymore. It was national news. Chloe Kim from Channel 7 arrived with her crew, but she was too late for the main event. She began setting up for aftermath interviews. Ashley Peterson tried to slip away unnoticed, but Hayes's voice stopped her. Miss Peterson, HOA coordinator, you stated that Agent Washington didn't belong in this neighborhood. Ashley froze. I was mistaken. You were discriminatory. This interaction is also part of the federal record. More agents were arriving. A mobile command unit pulled up. This was becoming a full federal response. Evans keyed his radio. All units, stand down. Federal operation in progress. But Chief Morrison was already pulling up in his unmarked vehicle, and his face was the color of old concrete. Hayes turned to address the growing crowd and cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, what you've witnessed today is systematic bias in action. Officer Sullivan made assumptions based solely on race and perceived social status. She gestured toward Terrence. Agent Washington purchased this home in 2022. He pays $47,000 annually in property taxes. He has lived here without incident for 3 years. The crowd murmured. $47,000 in property taxes meant a house worth well over $2 million. Today's incident will be analyzed as part of a comprehensive study on bias in law enforcement. The data will be presented to Congress next month. Sullivan was sitting in his patrol car now, head in his hands. The magnitude of his career's destruction was becoming clear. Riley looked like she wanted to disappear entirely. Evans was calculating how many ways this could destroy the department. But Terrence was checking his watch again. The encrypted message display showed Phase 2 authorized. Hayes caught his eye and nodded slightly. However, Hayes continued, this incident represents just the beginning of our investigation into the Brookhaven Police Department. She paused for effect, letting the words sink in. We will be conducting a comprehensive review of all arrests, complaints, and interactions involving people of color over the past 5 years. Evans felt his knees go weak. Additionally, Agent Washington will be working directly with your department to implement bias training and oversight protocols. Sullivan looked up from his hands. He's going to be working with us? Hayes smiled, but it wasn't warm. Agent Washington will be your new consulting supervisor for civil rights compliance. You'll be seeing quite a lot of each other. The irony was perfect. The man Sullivan had humiliated and arrested would now be overseeing his professional conduct. Mrs. Davis was still filming, tears of satisfaction streaming down her face. The comment section was exploding with celebration and outrage in equal measure. Chief Morrison finally reached the scene, took one look at the federal agents, the cameras, and Sullivan's defeated posture, and understood that his department's reputation had just been shattered on live television. But Hayes wasn't finished. "There's one more thing," she announced to the crowd and cameras. This entire operation was conducted with full departmental cooperation. Everyone stared at her. Brookhaven Police Department volunteered to participate in this study. Chief Morrison signed the agreement last month. The final twist hit like a bomb. Evans stared at his chief in shock and betrayal. Morrison nodded grimly. The department had agreed to federal oversight in exchange for avoiding a broader Justice Department investigation. Sullivan's world collapsed entirely. His own department had set him up. Terrence stepped forward, addressing the cameras directly. Real-life stories like this happen every day across America. Black tales, stories that never get recorded, never get witnessed, never get justice. His voice carried the weight of 23 years in law enforcement and a lifetime of being judged by his skin color. But today, the system worked. Not perfectly, not quickly, but it worked. He looked directly at Sullivan. "Officer Sullivan, you have a choice now. You can learn from this or you can repeat it, but you'll never do it without consequences again." Chief Morrison approached the Federal Command Center like a man walking to his own execution. His 28 years of service, his pension, his reputation, everything hung in the balance of the next conversation. Director Hayes didn't look up from her tablet as he approached. "Chief Morrison, thank you for your cooperation in Operation Mirror." Director Hayes. Morrison's voice was carefully controlled. "I wasn't expecting such a comprehensive response. Agent Washington's detention triggered our emergency protocols." Hayes's fingers moved across the tablet screen. "Shall we review the data?" The mobile command unit had become an impromptu courtroom. Federal agents worked on laptops, processing real-time analysis. Mrs. Davis's live stream continued from across the street. 68,000 viewers now watched federal agents dismantle a police department's credibility in real time. The comment section was brutal. "Brookhaven PD getting exposed. This is what justice looks like. Number Blacktail Stories needs to cover this daily. FBI coming for racist cops everywhere. Operation Mirror has been documenting bias patterns for 18 months. Hayes began. Brookhaven PD scored in the 97th percentile for racial disparities in arrests. Morrison's jaw tightened. "Those statistics can be misleading." 97th percentile. Hayes's voice cut through his protest. "Meaning only 3% of departments nationwide show worse bias patterns than yours." She turned the tablet toward him. Charts and graphs filled the screen. Arrest rates by demographics, complaint ratios, use of force statistics. The data painted a devastating picture. "Officer Sullivan represents a pattern, not an anomaly. Agent Washington documented 12 similar incidents across your department in the past 6 months." Evans overhead, still reeling from the revelation that his own department had set them up. 12 incidents. "Officer Riley," Hayes continued, consulting hair files. 7 discrimination complaints in 18 months. Officer Torres, 9 complaints. Officer Kim, 4 complaints. Officer Patterson, 6 complaints. Officer Williams, 11 complaints. Each name hit Morrison like a physical blow. His officers weren't just making individual mistakes. They were creating a systematic pattern of institutional discrimination. Agent Sarah Carter, Hayes's legal counsel, stepped forward with additional documents. "Chief Morrison, we've also documented disparities in traffic stops. Black motorists are 3.7 times more likely to be searched during routine stops. 3.7 times more likely, but contraband discovery rates are 42% lower," another agent added, indicating stops based on racial profiling rather than legitimate suspicion. Morrison felt the walls closing in. Every statistic was another nail in his department's coffin. Terrence stepped forward, his federal authority now undeniable. "Chief Morrison, let's discuss the financial implications." Morrison's face went pale. Federal funding was everything. Equipment, training, technology, half their operating budget. Brookhaven PD receives $2.3 million annually in federal grants, Terrence continued, reading from his tablet. "Civil rights violations can trigger immediate funding suspension under Section 14141 of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act." "Section 14141, Evans whispered to Riley. Riley had gone to law enforcement school. She knew the implications. Federal oversight. They could basically take over the entire department's operations. Terrence pulled out his own tablet, numbers flowing across the screen with bureaucratic precision. Community policing grants, $412,000. Drug enforcement funding, $638,000. Equipment modernization, $815,000. Training programs, $327,000. Each number represented jobs, salaries, operations. Without federal money, Brookhaven PD would collapse within 3 months. Additionally, Hayes added, civil liability exposure from today's incident alone could reach 7 figures. Morrison found his voice. 7 figures? Federal civil rights lawsuits under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 start at $1 million, Agent Carter explained. Agent Washington's case would be prosecuted by the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division directly. The crowd was growing exponentially. More news vans arrived every few minutes. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. This wasn't just local news anymore. The hashtag number Brookhaven FBI was trending nationally across all social media platforms. Chloe Kim was interviewing neighbors live on Channel 7. Mrs. Davis had become an instant celebrity, her live stream being rebroadcast on major networks nationwide. But inside the command unit, the real, corporate-style power play was just beginning. However, Hayes's tone shifted slightly, the first hint of negotiation. There is an alternative path forward. Morrison leaned forward desperately. Any alternative to a federal takeover was worth considering. Consent decree. Voluntary compliance with federal oversight and reform protocols. What exactly would that involve? Terrence stepped forward again, consulting his comprehensive tablet. Complete restructuring of training protocols. Mandatory bias training for all officers. 40 hours annually, not the current 8 hours every 3 years. Each requirement felt like another nail in the department's independence. Body camera footage reviewed by federal monitors, Agent Carter added. Random sampling of 20% of all interactions, with a particular focus on traffic stops and residential calls. External oversight board with community representation, Hayes continued. Monthly compliance reports to the Justice Department. A zero-tolerance policy for verified discrimination complaints. Evans was calculating rapidly in his head. Zero tolerance meant any substantiated complaint could end a career immediately. The old boy's club culture would die overnight. What specifically happens to Officer Sullivan? Morrison asked quietly. Hayes looked toward the patrol car where Sullivan sat. His career effectively ended. Officer Sullivan will serve as a case study. His actions today will be analyzed in federal training materials distributed to law enforcement agencies nationwide. The irony was perfect and brutal. Sullivan's racist assumptions would now educate thousands of officers about the consequences of bias. He can remain employed pending completion of 200 hours of bias training and community service, Terrence added, in black and brown neighborhoods. Specifically, Sullivan would spend the next year serving the very communities he discriminated against. The punishment fit the crime with poetic precision. The alternative to voluntary compliance, Hayes continued, is a federal takeover under Title VI violations, complete loss of local control, and federal management of all operations. Morrison had seen federal takeovers before in other cities. Those departments became shells of themselves, micromanaged by Washington bureaucrats who'd never walked a beat. Financial penalties would include full reimbursement of Operation Mirror costs, Terrence added, consulting his tablet again. Approximately $4.7 million over 18 months of investigation. Morrison's knees nearly buckled. $4.7 million would bankrupt the entire city government. Plus, Hayes added almost casually, criminal referrals for any officers found to have violated federal civil rights statutes under color of authority. Criminal referrals meant prison time. Sullivan could face federal charges for unlawful detention, civil rights violations, and deprivation of rights under color of law. The live stream audience had reached 89,000 viewers. Comments flooded in from across the country. This is how you handle racist cops. FBI don't mess around with civil rights. Justice finally happening in real time. Blacktail's stories like this give me hope for America. Real-life stories showing change is possible, but anonymous accounts pushed back aggressively. Government overreach destroying good cops. What happened to due process? FBI targeting hard-working police. Morrison looked at his officers scattered around the scene, Evans sweating profusely, Riley barely holding back tears, Sullivan broken and defeated in his patrol car. 28 years of building this department, and it was crumbling in real time on national television. If we accept the consent decree, Morrison asked slowly, What timeline are we looking at for implementation? Implementation begins immediately, Hayes replied without hesitation. Agent Washington will establish a permanent field office here within 30 days. Terrence smiled slightly, the first show of satisfaction he'd allowed himself. I'll be your new neighbor permanently, Chief, living right here in Brookhaven, overseeing daily compliance operations. The final twist of the knife. The man Sullivan had tried to remove from the neighborhood would now be running it with federal authority. Federal monitors will conduct quarterly reviews for 5 years minimum, Hayes continued. Extensions are possible if compliance standards falter. 5 years of federal oversight. Every arrest, every complaint, every interaction scrutinized by Washington bureaucrats. Morrison looked at the cameras, the crowd, the federal agents surrounding his command. His department's dirty laundry was being aired on national television. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. It was surrender or complete destruction. Chief, Evans whispered urgently, we have to take the deal. We can't survive a federal takeover. Morrison nodded slowly, swallowing his pride. Pride was a luxury he couldn't afford anymore. We accept the consent decree. Hayes smiled, the first genuine expression of satisfaction she'd shown all day. Excellent decision. Agent Washington will begin transition planning immediately. She gestured to one of her agents, who approached with legal documents already prepared. The FBI had known how this would end before it began. Sign here for voluntary compliance. Initial here for federal oversight acceptance. Date here. Each signature felt like surrendering a piece of his department's soul. But Morrison signed anyway. The alternative was complete destruction. The crowd applauded as word spread that the police department had accepted federal oversight. Mrs. Davis's comment section exploded with celebration. Justice served. This is what accountability looks like. Black stories finally getting the endings they deserve. But the real work was just beginning. Immediate accountability. Agent Carter stepped forward with additional paperwork. Officer Sullivan, you're suspended without pay, pending completion of mandatory training. Sullivan looked up from his patrol car, defeat written across his face. For how long? 6 months minimum, Hayes replied. 200 hours of bias training. 100 hours of community service in predominantly black neighborhoods. The specificity was deliberate. Sullivan would spend his suspension working in the very communities he discriminated against. Officer Riley, formal reprimand, 40 hours of additional training within 90 days. Riley nodded mutely, grateful it wasn't worse. Sergeant Evans, you'll be attending federal leadership training on bias recognition and intervention protocols. Evans had failed to stop Sullivan's escalation. His silence made him complicit. Ashley Peterson tried to slip away unnoticed, but Hayes's voice stopped her cold. Miss Peterson, HOA coordinator, your statement that Agent Washington didn't belong in this neighborhood is now part of the federal record. Ashley's face went white. I was mistaken. You were discriminatory. The HOA board will receive federal guidance on fair housing compliance. Even the neighborhood association wasn't immune from federal oversight. Systemic changes implementation. Terrence pulled out his tablet, reading from prepared reform protocols. Brookhaven PD will implement the Washington model for bias-free policing. The Washington model, named after him, would become the template for departments nationwide. All officers will complete 40-hour bias training annually, not the previous 8 hours every 3 years. Morrison winced. 40 hours meant taking officers off the street for a full work week every year. Body cameras will auto-upload to federal servers. Random sampling of 20% of all interactions with AI analysis for bias indicators. Technology would be their supervisor now. Every traffic stop, every arrest, every interaction monitored by federal algorithms. External oversight board established with 7 community representatives, monthly public meetings, quarterly compliance reviews. The community would have real power over police operations for the first time. Agent Carter added the financial details. Federal funding is restored contingent on monthly compliance reports. The first violation triggers an immediate review. The carrot and stick approach, comply or lose everything. Legal and financial ramifications. Civil liability insurance increased to $5 million annually, Hayes continued. Previous incidents are under review for potential federal prosecution. Morrison's stomach dropped. $5 million in insurance would strain the city budget dramatically. Officer Sullivan faces potential federal charges under 18 U.S.C. 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. Sullivan's hands shook. Federal civil rights charges carried up to 10 years in prison. However, Cooperation with reform efforts may influence prosecutorial discretion. A lifeline. Comply completely and maybe avoid federal prison. Community healing initiatives. Mrs. Davis approached the Federal Command Unit, still live streaming. Agent Washington, what happens next for the community? Terrence smiled, the first genuinely warm expression he'd shown all day. Mrs. Davis, you're now part of the Oversight Board. Your documentation made this accountability possible. The crowd cheered. Mrs. Davis had become a civil rights hero through her phone camera. Monthly town halls between police and residents, restorative justice programs for past incidents, community policing, partnerships, real change, not just punishment. Hayes addressed the growing crowd. Federal mediators will facilitate healing sessions between affected community members and officers, personal victory and intellectual triumph. Terrence looked at his watch, the same omega that had marked the countdown to this moment. 11:47 a.m. Less than 2 hours had transformed everything. No violence, no immediate lawsuits needed, no revenge change achieved through documentation, federal leverage, and strategic patience. This model will be replicated in 46 other cities currently under federal investigation, Terrence announced for the cameras. Sullivan finally spoke from his patrol car. Agent Washington, how long have you been planning this? Terrence approached slowly. Officer Sullivan, I've been documenting bias for 18 months, but you chose your actions today. The distinction was crucial. Terrence created the opportunity for justice. Sullivan created the injustice. I could have responded with anger, with violence, with lawsuits. Instead, I responded with evidence. The crowd listened intently, phones still recording. Real change happens when we stay calm enough to be strategic. Broader impact. Chloe Kim thrust her microphone forward. Agent Washington, what message does this send nationally? That touching stories of injustice don't have to end with despair, Terrence replied. Life stories can have different endings when we document everything and use the system correctly. Mrs. Davis wiped tears from her eyes. Her simple decision to record had triggered a federal civil rights investigation. Hayes stepped forward for the final announcement. The Brookhaven model will be presented to Congress next month as proposed legislation for nationwide police reform. Sullivan's racist assumptions had accidentally created the catalyst for national change. Morrison pocketed his copy of the consent decree, knowing his department would never be the same. But watching Terrence shake hands with community leaders, Morrison realized that transformation might not be such a terrible thing. The black tales that happened every day in America finally had an example of systematic justice. 6 months later, the Brookhaven Federal Field Office occupied the corner building on Maple Drive, just 3 blocks from where Officer Sullivan had handcuffed Agent Washington. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Terrence walked through his new neighborhood each morning, greeting the same neighbors who had witnessed his humiliation. Mrs. Davis always waved from her window, still proud of her role in changing everything. The numbers told the story of transformation. Racial profiling incidents in Brookhaven, down 78%. Officer complaints involving bias, down 84%. Community trust surveys, up 63%. Officer Sullivan had completed his bias training and community service. The man who once saw threats in black faces now coached youth basketball in East Brookhaven. His transformation wasn't complete, but it was real. Agent Washington changed my life, Sullivan admitted during his first public interview. I was raised with hate, but I don't have to live with it. Personal transformation and legacy. Terrence's promotion to assistant director of the newly created National Bias Prevention Unit came with a mandate. Replicate Brookhaven nationwide. His marriage to Dr. Kesha Washington, a community activist and researcher, strengthened his resolve. Together, they represented the intellectual approach to social change. Data over drama, strategy over street protests. The Washington Protocol was now studied in police academies across 43 states. His book, Staying Calm in the Storm, an FBI agent's guide to systemic change, became required reading for law enforcement leadership. Broader social impact. Mrs. Davis's live stream had sparked a movement. Document Everything became a rallying cry for civil rights advocates. Her video, now with 12 million views, proved that ordinary citizens with smartphones could trigger federal investigations. The Brookhaven model had been implemented in 27 cities. Crime rates remained stable while bias complaints plummeted. The data proved that fair policing was also effective policing. Ashley Peterson had resigned from the HOA board and moved to Florida. The new community leadership reflected Brookhaven's actual diversity for the first time. National legislative impact. Congress had passed the Federal Police Accountability Act, directly inspired by Operation Mirror. The legislation required bias training, federal oversight triggers, and community representation in police governance. Senator Maria Rodriguez cited Terrence's testimony. Agent Washington proved that we can achieve justice through documentation and determination, not destruction and division. The power of preparation over confrontation. Standing in his federal office, Terrence reflected on that morning 6 months ago. His calm response to Sullivan's racism had triggered the largest police reform movement in decades. The core lesson resonated in every speech he gave. True power comes from preparation, not confrontation. Systemic change requires documentation, allies, and strategic patience. He'd maintained his dignity while achieving collective progress, exactly what his father had taught him: personal growth and continued mission. The young black agents who now worked under Terrence saw him as proof that the system could work for justice, not just power. His quiet leadership style inspired a new generation of federal investigators focused on civil rights. Every case they solved added to the growing collection of real-life stories that proved change was possible. Lesson: true power isn't in the confrontation, but in the preparation. When faced with injustice, the most effective response is not uncontrolled anger, but controlled, strategic action. By staying calm, documenting everything, and knowing how to leverage the system, you can turn a moment of personal humiliation into a catalyst for systemic change. Call to action. Your story matters. Every injustice you witness, every bias you document, every moment you choose courage over comfort, it all adds up. Share your experiences with bias in the comments below. Your story could be the evidence someone else needs for justice. Subscribe to Black Tales Stories for more accounts of quiet courage and systemic change, because touching stories don't have to end with tears. They can end with transformation. Remember, when you see injustice, don't just get angry. Get evidence.